And it looks like the motorcade is just starting to arrive here on the campus of Georgia Southwestern University. So let's watch it as they roll in.
If you're just joining us, you are looking live at a picture of a group gathering right outside of Georgia Southwestern State University. The hearse carrying former First Lady Rosalynn Carter has just arrived within about the last 30 seconds. It arrived from its first stop, which is at the Phoebe Medical Center in Sumter County, at the Phoebe Sumter Medical Center in Americus. It's just arrived. As people gather, there will be 2 wreath-laying ceremonies there in front of the building. As people are lining the roads there, we saw that happening outside of Phoebe Sumter Medical Center in Americus as well. People had lined the roads there as the hearse made its way here to Georgia Southwestern State University for this part of the day. This is the first in 3 days of events honoring the life of and legacy of former First Lady Rosalynn Carter.
And as we just saw there, if you all were watching, you could really feel the heaviness in the air, but also a celebration of life for Mrs. Carter. She was loved dearly by her entire community here in Plains, by her university, which she attended before marrying Mr. Carter. And there's a lot of family down in Plains, family both by blood and by profession. We saw her Secret Service detail, who will act as the palm bearers, past and present. And what Cheryl and I were talking about 20 minutes ago or so is how much of a family they have become as well. As we look on, we see law enforcement here. We see everyone preparing for this wreath laying. We spoke with Christy Diaz, who says, there's a bronze statue of Mrs. Carter here on the campus that she fought against because she was just so humble in nature. And as we're watching now, we see the law enforcement officer walking. And I believe we will look on, there's the bronze statue that I was just talking about there, as you can see. And I believe this is the Rosalynn Carter Institute caregiver CEO, Jennifer Olson. She's one of the 2 people who will place 2 wreaths at Mrs. Carter's bronze statue. So that's who we're looking at right now.
Jennifer Olson has done tremendous work for caregiving, and to not just do that work here in Georgia, the former First Lady's home state, but across the country, and has talked a lot with 11 Alive reporter Christy Diaz about the commitment to continue that work and to not only continue Mrs. Carter's legacy, but to build on it. And here is the second wreath that will be placed at the statue.
And this is Georgia Southwestern State University President Neil Weaver placing this wreath as we look on and listen on.
Significant to see the bronze statue of Mrs. Carter there on the bench. As she sits alone there on the bench, her image of a steel magnolia, someone with great compassion and care for the people around her, but the tenacity and strength to make sure she got things done, and that will continue to be the case on that campus and far beyond, as now people will walk by and pay their respects. You just feel this deep respect, I think, and gratitude. No matter what side of the aisle one might find themselves on, there is this bipartisan respect for the humanitarian work that they both did for all of their adult lives, and really setting the tone and setting the bar for what a former president and first lady can accomplish in those years. You know, you think back, they were so young when they left the White House. You know, former president was 56 years old, and she 3 years his junior, 96 at the time of her passing in Plains just a few days ago. Amazing accomplishments in a single life.
And you know, I feel like Mrs. Carter had so many one-liners that just really made you laugh and smile, even in the midst of, you know, serious issues. But one of my favorite lines that she said, she called Mr. Carter's departure from the White House an involuntary retirement.
Yes. She said, I thought we'd go back to Plains and be bored out of our minds. She said that certainly was not the case, and by design. You know, she was also an author, wrote a number of books alongside her husband. They wrote at least one together. But the really work in some ways began after the White House in so many ways, through the Carter Center and beyond, for certain.
And I mean, you know, you speak to people and folks who have lived through his administration. People know that towards the end he wasn't the most popular president, but the work didn't stop there. Both for Mr. Carter and Mrs. Carter, they continued to fight. They opened the Carter Center, and what Mr. Carter was saying is, like, you know what, we want to have a place like Camp David in Georgia, where people can come and we can make deals, we can actually make change. And it was established, and it has in fact made a lot of change. We were speaking about the eradication of guinea worm. We spoke with Christy about her fellowship there. There are just several programs that continue to come out of the Carter Center. And those of us who live in Atlanta, many of us have gone. I went and saw Stacey Abrams speak for something at the Carter Center. So just lots of different events, a lot of different programs and passions that are continued, that really just are continuing the legacy that Mrs. Carter worked so hard for. And it really is just a day to, once again, it's a sad day for the rest of the Plains, for the country, but it's a day of hope, a day to look forward. How can we continue her legacy?